So we were talking about how annoying it is in a scatter plot to try to determine like strong versus weak. And so this little table and number line and series of graphs is supposed to sort of show you what our criteria are for strong, moderate, weak. So I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened here. It makes me incredibly sad. In fact, I got so distracted in my first video I had to start over because I lost my crap about the fact that that table got screwed up. But basically, as we said, close to 0 means that we have a weak linear relationship. Close to 1 or -1 means we have a strong linear relationship. And then anything sort of towards that 0.5 right between the two would be a moderate linear relationship. And then, of course, positive is positive, negative is negative in terms of the relationship. So you got this table to help you out. And then you also have this little display here at the bottom to sort of show you what this means in terms of scatter plots. So you got some examples. The R of 1 and -1, as we said, everything falling directly on a line. And then you can kind of see how much spread there is in a 0.8 to a 0.7, right? We're starting to see quite a bit of spread. And then a 0.4. And a 0.3, it's almost hard to see any linear trend at all. You can almost only see the linear trend by the fact that there's sort of these two areas where there's nothing. And then you can kind of see that trend going through that corridor. And then a 0, nothing at all going on, just completely scattered. So the important thing on this page is the interpretation. This is something that should go on your note card. This is something I ask on every exam, is to interpret the correlation coefficient. And there are basically 3 to 4 points on this question. 1 point is strength, 1 point's direction. Got to have the word linear because remember that's sort of a limitation of our correlation coefficient. And then you got to give me the context of what we're talking about. So we're going to go ahead and see this on the next exercise. So for this exercise, I want you to estimate a correlation coefficient and then try plugging into that equation, or not equation, but that interpretation line. And just know this is our first time that we're going to say it. But in this class, whenever I say interpret, that means there's probably a sentence where we statistically say what's going on because, based on whatever the heck that value is. So if you were to estimate a correlation coefficient for this, you should definitely have something negative. You probably went back up to here and tried to figure out which one this looked pretty similar to. And to me, it looks a lot like that 0.07, the negative 0.7. Yeah, I said it wrong the first time. So that's where we're looking. And then we're sitting there, okay, all right, now that I have that, I'm going to interpret the correlation coefficient. So I'm going to use this sentence. There is a, and now we're looking at strength. I could refer back up to those little guidelines up above. 0.75 was the cutoff for strong, but I'm not expecting you to memorize that or have that on your note card for the exam. So you're mostly going to look at 0.7 and say, well, what is that closer to? Is it closer to 1 or is it closer to 0.5? Because 1 would be strong, 0.5 would be moderate, and then you can go towards whatever it is. Or you can hedge your bets. You could say something like, there is a moderate to strong, because you know it's somewhere between the two, which is fine. So we got our strength. We need the direction. Well, it's negative. And then we need linear relationship. You could also use the word association, but the word linear has to be there. Between, and you're just going to name the two variables, latitude, and you don't need to give units because remember the R does not care about units, and temperature. Doesn't matter if it's Celsius or Fahrenheit. This is just a general relationship between those two variables. So again, points for the strength, point for the direction, point for the word linear, and then point for the context. So that's the interpretation of our correlation coefficient. It'll definitely be on the exam, but as long as you have that on your note card, it's a pretty easy, straightforward couple of points in the exam.